WWE is going through a real rough patch right now. The product seems pretty stale, pretty boring, and just seems so predictable and lifeless. To the point that I'm seeing people reminiscing on the Vince McMahon days. I'm talking those late 2000s, early 2010s, actually pretty much all of the 2010s era of Vince McMahon. And that's crazy to me, because as somebody who watched that trash ass shit, there's no reason why that nigga Vince McMahon should be reminisced in any capacity. Aside from the sex pest allegations, the man lost his touch decades ago, and making a change was long overdue. The reason I bring that up is because in today's video, we're going to talk about one of the creations of the Vince McMahon era, and anytime you think things are so bad, trust me, it could be a whole lot worse.
Hey. On that beat? Nope.
It's so hard to talk about Jinder Mahal because if I'm being quite honest with you, his career just was a bunch of nothing until he became the WWE champion. Like, it's so crazy to even talk about his career before he became WWE champion because it's really filled with a whole bunch of nothing. The man was in a little mini feud with the Great Khali as his debut, and it's not even like he won the feud, he lost. With the story being that Jinder Mahal was marrying Great Khali's sister, and because Jinder Mahal came from wealth, Great Khali had to listen to him. It was so weird and strange. Nobody asked for this, and nobody in the crowd gave a single flying fuck about it. You fast forward in time, and Jinder Mahal was just doing a bunch of stuff in the mid-card, jobbing to guys like Sheamus, Ryback, to the point that his stock was just completely in the mud as just another guy on the roster. That's pretty much it. And when WWE rebranded from FCW to NXT, Jinder Mahal actually got moved down to the brand. And to his credit, WWE was actually giving him a little bit of a push there for a while, because in their first tournament to crown their first ever NXT champion, Jinder Mahal was on a win streak, beating a whole bunch of guys. There were some notable faces in the tournament like Bo Dallas. He beat him in the first round. Hell, y'all remember EC3? He was one of the guys that Jinder Mahal beat in that tournament, which in hindsight, all I can do is laugh at the EC3 booking. Nonetheless though, he went to the finals of their NXT tournament for the championship and he lost to Seth Rollins. Yes, he was the guy that Seth Rollins beat to become the first ever NXT champion. After losing to Rollins in NXT, shortly after was the formation of 3MB. I would say this is probably the peak of Jinder Mahal's run in WWE, at least before he became WWE champion. As him, Heath Slater, and Drew McIntyre, yes, Drew McIntyre before he was fired from WWE, all decided to come together and form a little rock band trio group on the main roster. And honestly, even though they were just a whole bunch of jobbers who went out there to lose pretty much every single match they were in, I honestly thought they were kind of funny. Not every character needs to be taken serious, and sometimes you can get that comedic relief, and I thought that him, Slater, and McIntyre did a good job in their role. Unfortunately though, it wasn't enough to lock them in for life as WWE performers, as Jinder Mahal and Drew McIntyre were let go of their contracts in 2014. Mahal would then hit up the independent scene, and he even went on record in a 2017 interview saying that this was the lowest moment of his life. He had hit rock bottom. He said he cut down on drinking alcohol and began to work out, eat cleaner, and lost 20 pounds in the process, which then led to him being rehired in 2016. Because if you know anything about Vince McMahon, he loves his big, meaty, steroid jacked guys. And hey, I'm not saying Jinder Mahal was on steroids, but the back knee was there. That's all I'm gonna say. But despite having that stamp of approval from Vince McMahon to join back to WWE because he worked on his body, it's not like Jinder Mahal just shot his way to the top instantly. He was a jobber again. Hell, y'all remember when Rob Gronkowski got involved in that battle royal at WrestleMania? Of course you don't, because that shit was fucking boring. But when that did happen, he was eliminated by Mojo Rawley. Another reason why nobody gives a fuck about that battle royal. Mojo Rawley winning is just a disgrace. If anything, that battle royal is just a slap in the face to Andre the Giant. My goodness. But let me get back on track. Jinder Mahal was doing a bunch of nothing, even when he came back jacked as fuck. And then randomly on April 18th, after Jinder Mahal aligned himself with the Singh brothers in 2017, he won a six-pack challenge to win a #1 contendership spot to face Randy Orton at Backlash. It was so random, I was thinking, man, somebody must have gotten injured and they just said, hey, let's just throw Jinder in that spot. Randy's gonna retain anyway. And boy, was I fucking wrong. Cause in one of the biggest upsets in WWE history, this motherfucker Jinder Mahal actually beat Randy Orton and became the champion. I couldn't believe that shit. Honestly, it was so insane that in the moment I was like, man, he's gotta be dropping that shit soon. Jinder would go out there though, and unfortunately he held the title for months, 6 months to be exact. And you know the saddest thing about all of that? His win actually was a coincidence, because Rusev was actually supposed to get that spot, and that doesn't mean Rusev was gonna win the championship. We all know how they treated him when he was in his first run in WWE, but who knows? Maybe in another timeline, Rusev actually became the WWE champion in a shock upset win, but instead, we got Jinder fucking Mahal. And anybody who thinks that Vince McMahon did this because Jinder Mahal was over, you're lying to yourself. Nobody gave a fuck about Jinder Mahal before this win. Anybody who thinks Jinder Mahal won it because of hard work and perseverance, I mean, you're partially right. He did work hard. You never heard anything bad about Jinder Mahal. He was pretty well liked in the locker room. And I'm sure it was also a great moment for a lot of people that are even of Indian descent. See the first Indian win a WWE championship. Great moment for them. And if we're being honest, that's really the demographic that Vince McMahon was targeting here, as WWE was preparing to do a tour in India and Vince McMahon wanted to up the ticket sales. And you know what's crazy about that? Putting the title on Jinder didn't even do that shit, as the sales numbers were actually lower than they projected. Now some of you guys may be watching this and thinking, yo, Mustard bruh, it couldn't have been that bad, right? I mean, you just shitting on Jinder Mahal. How good was the reign? Well, I'll tell you, it was garbage. Jinder Mahal was never a great promo guy or anything, at least for the spot to be the top champion on the brand, where he would go out there and close or start shows cutting promos. And it would be one thing if he could make it up in the ring, but unfortunately that motherfucker couldn't do that shit. He was a very boring in-ring competitor. Like, I wouldn't say Mahal was trash as a wrestler, but he just wasn't built to be in the spot as the top guy in the company. And on top of that, they tried to make this guy seem legitimate as champion, when in reality we just saw him get jobbed out to Mojo Rawley at WrestleMania, and also have the whole history of the last 5 to 6 years of him not only being released because you didn't see him as a top guy, but him being in a stable with some jobbers before he got fired also didn't help. I mean, WWE literally told us that he was a jobber from the moment he stepped into the company up until he earned a chance to compete for the WWE Championship in 2017. It just didn't make any sense at all. And it would be one thing if the matches Jinder Mahal had were good, but unfortunately they weren't. He had that Punjabi prison match with Randy Orton, and holy shit, what a garbage ass match. A waste of my time. That match just went on and on and on and on, and the finish ain't helped nobody, as he won through interference from Great Khali. And you would think Khali maybe was gonna just join his stable as the Muscle, but no, we never saw Great Khali ever again. He vanished. To make matters worse, Baron Corbin, who was the current Money in the Bank holder at the time, went through with the cash-in on SmackDown on August 15th, and unfortunately, he lost. Got rolled up like a bum. And sure, maybe in hindsight we could say Baron Corbin never deserved to be WWE champion, but I would have much rather have seen Baron Corbin get a shot than Jinder fucking Mahal. Side note, that was the end of Baron Corbin, by the way. He was done after that. Sure, Vince was still hard for the nigga and kept trying to push him, but if we're being honest, this was the beginning of the end here. The man then tried to have a feud with Shinsuke Nakamura. They had 2 matches on pay-per-view, one at SummerSlam and one at the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. Not only did Shinsuke lose both of those matches when he was white hot and the fans wanted him to be champion, but those matches were boring as fuck. And sure, it does take 2 to tango in a match, but this was insane. Shinsuke was having good matches with hella guys at that point. Meanwhile, Jinder wasn't having good matches with anybody at that point. But then you talk about stuff like alternate realities, and unfortunately there is an alternate reality out there that in Survivor Series of 2017, Jinder Mahal would have faced Brock Lesnar in a champion versus champion match, because that's what they tried to do, y'all. As on October 17th on SmackDown in 2017, Jinder Mahal issued out a challenge to Brock Lesnar at Survivor Series. And for a quick minute, they were actually promoting the match. It was actually going to happen, until thankfully, God spared us, y'all. Brock Lesnar came into the picture and told Vince McMahon, I'm not wrestling this dude. I mean, could you even imagine Brock Lesnar taking bumps for Jinder Mahal? Mahal was champion for 6 to 7 months, and even at that time, nobody could buy into that shit. It didn't matter if he beat Randy Orton. It didn't matter if he beat Shinsuke Nakamura. He could have beat those motherfuckers clean. It really just didn't matter. Mahal was not a believable, legitimate champion. And thankfully, WWE finally wisened up. And on November 7th, 7th on SmackDown in UK. AJ Styles beat Jinder Mahal to give an ending to that shitty ass abysmal reign. And as a sidebar, it's actually the first time the WWE Championship has ever changed hands outside of North America. So a pretty historic way to go out if you ask me. He would then have a rematch for the championship at Clash of Champions, and of course, he lost. Thank God. Jinder would actually go on to later win the United States Championship at WrestleMania 34 in a fatal 4-way match, a match that everybody wanted to see Rusev win, by the way, but of course, he got pinned by Jinder. After Mahal lost the title to Jeff Hardy, he would go on to be a mid-carder for pretty much the rest of his career, and that was it for Jinder Mahal, man. Hell, I remember when he even came back last year and had that match with Seth Rollins on Raw. Y'all remember that shit? That was actually the match that Seth Rollins got hurt, and a lot of people were questioning if he was gonna make it to WrestleMania or not. Look, I'm not saying that Jinder Mahal was a bad performer. I'm not saying that he didn't deserve to have some level of success on the main roster. Hell, for Christ's sake, I literally said I enjoyed the 3MB stable. But Jinder Mahal is just a clear case of Vince McMahon trying to get a little cash grab. He was the business opportunity for him. And you know Vince loves his big jacked men. Vince never gave a single flying fuck about this nigga. But the moment that he jacked up, all of a sudden, hey, let's put the title on this dude. Crazy work, man. Just absolute crazy work. It was a terrible run. By the way, I forgot to add this. Jinder Mahal had one of the worst finishers in WWE. My God, that Colossus was terrible.